Well, hey everybody. I am coming to you from the road right now. I am about halfway between Clarksville, Tennessee and Paducah, Kentucky, so wherever that puts me. Anyhow, all this afternoon I've been listening to the news talking about a couple of things, and I had a couple of things I wanted to say about them, and I didn't want to stop the car, so here we go. The first thing that everybody's been talking about, of course, is the prostitution scandal that may be involving the governor of New York, and everybody's weighing in on it, and it's been talked about all afternoon. And I was actually going back and forth between the coverage on Fox and on CNN when different ones would go to commercials or different ones would get new information that the other ones didn't have. And it's not very often that I have occasion to see this firsthand, but Fox's coverage of it was definitely far more sensational, far quicker to jump to conclusions than what was going on CNN. In fact, at one point, Greta Van Susteren had to interrupt the host and say, "Listen, we need to dial this back in because the people that are on the air right now are saying things that aren't really correct. This guy has not been indicted. He has not been named by name in the paperwork and so forth." So, and they were taking a much more measured approach over on CNN. Of course, they gotten everybody what they thought about it, and everybody said the same thing I did when I text messaged Ed up in Buffalo. I said I'm absolutely shocked because here's a guy who ran as a paragon of virtue and taking on people with conflicts of interest and who would violate the law, and of all things, to be a former prosecutor and to get involved in a prostitution sting, if that's what this all turns out to be, well, it's pretty amazing. If he does wind up having to resign, the lieutenant governor of New York is a man named David Patterson, who would be a first in a couple of ways. He is both African American and he's blind, and that would make him, he already is the highest ranking state official anywhere in the country that's visually impaired. He'd also be the first African American governor. The second thing that irritated me, and one of those moments that I was listening over on Fox News just before they went to a commercial break, the host said, "Are Democrats in Congress working to keep gas prices artificially high to help them in the elections?" One person thinks so, and we'll talk to them after the break. They come back from the break, and she repeats that comment, and she says, "We have a Republican strategist and a Democratic strategist, and they're both contributors to Fox News." So it's not like a government accounting person or even a senator or representative were saying this. It was just some talking head saying this. And when they asked her what she thought about it, she said, "Well, the gas prices are high, and it's not the president's fault because the president can only sign or veto legislation. It's Congress that has to pass legislation, and Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton, this, that, and the other thing." What her argument boiled down to was because Congress hasn't passed some sort of law intended to bring the price of gas down, that they are conspiring to keep the prices as high as they can to try and help them in the upcoming election. And of course, the Democratic strategist did a little bit to refute that, but it really speaks to the quality of Fox News that the Democratic people that they get on there can't even knock down a straw man as simple as that one, which was the 8 years of failed energy policy that we've been under in this administration are the reason why we're having the problems that we do. I had just a few minutes before that stopped in near Fort Campbell and paid $3.20 a gallon for gas, and I drive a hybrid, and I'm still complaining about the price of gas. We have some serious issues when it comes to being beholden to unstable countries with atrocious human rights policies with whom we would ordinarily disagree and shun and tell the rest of the international community this is not what we expect of a modern 21st century nation. But we turn a blind eye to that and we pretend it doesn't exist. And you can see Stephen Harper in Canada and Tony Blair before, and now Gordon Brown in the United Kingdom, and of course our oil barons here in the United States doing everything that they can to pretend that there aren't horrible things going on in Saudi Arabia and in other Middle East oil supplying countries, as well as Venezuela with Hugo Chavez and the things that he says and the way that he roils up the Latin American continent. There's not going to be a solution to these problems until we seriously tackle alternative sources of energy. And I'm not just talking about corn and biofuel, because the price of wheat and corn and some of these organics that people want to use in order to fuel our automobiles, those things have gone through the roof, and they are not a reasonable substitute. We need people who are going to smack around the folks in Detroit and say, listen, if people who buy Priuses can form little car clubs out in Nevada and California, and with a couple of $100 and several hours of their own labor can tweak that car to get from its starting mileage of 40 to 50 miles per gallon up over 100 miles per gallon, if they can do this, you need to be doing the same thing too. You must be doing the same thing. There's absolutely no excuse why the CAFE standards, the fuel efficiency standards in this country are so pathetically low, and why our government is not forcing automakers to do better. People have been complaining about the price of gas, but the price of gas certainly has not been a deterrent like it should be, like it ordinarily would in an economic system where high prices eventually will reduce the demand for something. Instead, we feel like driving and gasoline are an entitlement, and that they should, be at a certain price, and that if they're not, that there's something wrong with all of that. And we seriously need to have a different approach to all of this. It's not going to happen until we get a new administration, and maybe even not then. It's going to take some serious pressure from the public to make that happen. So those are the things that are on my mind right now, and I'm a little distracted because a state police vehicle just pulled in front of me, but I think he's pulling somebody else over. So anyhow, that's what's in the news, so consider yourself caught up.